it doesn't add up, because then you're going to work your lazy girl job for the rest of your life if you're not saving and budgeting as well.
Oh, wake up, rethink the status quo. When you get your money right, then you're the one who runs your life. Come build a wealthy spirit with Sammie and Michelle.
Sammie, I've been thinking about options for you for your next job. And what do you think about getting one of these lazy girl jobs?
What do I think about a lazy girl job? Let me tell you, I do not have a lazy girl job right now. As our listeners know, I'm a physician assistant, and it is the opposite of a lazy girl job. All of my hours, all of my minutes, all of my seconds are taken up. Appointments every 15 minutes. Then I come back to my desk and it's covered with sticky notes. Patient 1 wants a refill on his prescription. Patient 2 wants you to call their doctor's insurance for clearance on the MRI. Patient 3's labs are in. They're critical. And he's not answering the phone. Patient 4 won't say what they want, but they want you to call them right now. Maybe you can find time in between your 15-minute appointments that actually take 25 minutes. Yes, I want a lazy girl job. I'm not one of these types that thinks I suffered, so should you. No, we should all move towards lazy girl jobs, and I support this 100%.
Ooh, Sammie, lazy girl jobs, it's the trending thing right now, and I'm excited to talk about it because it will definitely be interesting to see our different takes, because it's definitely a spicy, controversial, trending topic. But I think for our audience, there are some good things that you can take away from the idea of a lazy girl job. And I have some critiques.
Let's get into it.
But first, Sammie and I wanted to encourage all of you to take a second and subscribe to our newsletter. You can find it at buildawealthyspirit.com. Our newsletter has become a really great companion to these episodes. So if you enjoy topics like the lazy girl job and you want to know, where can I find the origin of this? What is this TikTok they keep referring to? What are the pieces that we're mentioning? Those will all be in our show notes, in our newsletter. But on top of that, we've also been doing a write-up to just reflect on the topic, share a little bit of our thoughts in writing. And the best part is we have a comment section now. So if you subscribe to our newsletter, you can actually even go to the website and comment. Let us know your thoughts after you listen to this. Do you want a lazy girl job? Are you anti-lazy girl job? We want to hear it, especially a topic like this one that's so spicy. We want to know your thoughts. So don't forget to subscribe, buildawealthyspirit.com.
Now back to today's topic, lazy girl jobs. If you're like me, a millennial or above, you're probably wondering, what's a lazy girl job? Lazy girl job was coined by Gabrielle Judge, and she's a 26-year-old career influencer. She has a lot of videos on TikTok, and in May, she coined the lazy girl job, saying that it's something you basically quiet quit. Yes, in classic Gen Z fashion, she defined lazy girl job with another Gen Z terminology, which, if you remember back to high school English, that's a no-no.
It's really interesting, Sammie. I saw lazy girl job trending. Gabrielle Judge alone on her video has over 3 million views. It's a trending topic on TikTok. It's on the news. It's on the television. Everyone has something to say about it. And quite frankly, so do Sammie and I. Lazy girl job, that is up our wheelhouse. We talk about your work. We talk about things like burnout and taking sabbaticals. And we're women. So I think that something like this, we definitely wanted to throw our 2 cents into, because we agree with a lot of what Gabrielle talks about and the idea behind this. And we also have some of our own concerns. The cool thing is, too, we found a really great piece in the Wall Street Journal to be a companion to this topic. The piece is The Lazy Girl Job is in right now. Here's why, by Katie Mogg.
And how Katie, the millennial or boomer that she is, defines the lazy girl job is, it is a job that can be done from home. It comes with a chill boss. It ends at 5 o'clock, sharp. And it earns between $60,000 to $80,000 a year. Pretty much enough so you can afford the basic comforts of a a young adult life, but not feel compelled to work overtime. Katie even gives some examples of lazy girl jobs. She mentions digital marketing associates, customer success managers, office administrators. She describes these all as potential lazy girl jobs.
Yeah, and she pulls that pretty much from Gabrielle Judge's TikTok video. And I, first and foremost, a lot of these roles that they name are circling very close to my own career path in sales.
I was like, wait, I do believe Gabrielle Judge actually said account manager, account executive as one of the examples.
She said account manager, yeah.
Okay. Which
different than
I
account
actually don't know if
executive.
that's different. I guess it's different.
It's very similar. But yeah, so basically a lazy girl job is a non-technical role in a technical job. It's something that you can go, you can do your work, you can do work that you're proud of. I think something that the woman who made the TikTok, Gabrielle, constantly reinforces is that you don't have to be lazy in your job. But I think a key thing is that you're not giving more to your work than they require from you.
I have to say, I like the lazy girl job. I see the controversial name and I can see how that's very clickbaity. But at the end of the day, I think the concept of a lazy girl job, it supports work-life balance. It's kind of anti this grind and work a million hours culture. And I like that. I like that people are focusing on the other aspects of their life outside of work.
I agree with you, Sammie. If you look at the core of what the trend seems to be, despite the title lazy girl job, which I don't know why it's always girl these days. Why don't we use the word women in 2023? But that's besides the point. I think behind lazy girl job, the thing that I do agree with is that work a lot of times does become our identity. Our job title means so much to us. Like when I quit my job, for example, and I had to start telling people I'm not working, and I didn't think that working in sales was that big of a deal, but not having that job title to associate myself with put me in a little bit of an identity crisis because I was really attached to the title of my job, the company I work at, my salary. Those things did matter to me, I realized. I didn't really know who I was without that. And I think the lazy girl job encourages people to pull their identity away from their work. It's like, look, it doesn't matter if you're working hard at your job or not. It shouldn't be the center of your universe regardless.
I completely agree, Michelle. Cal Newport talks a lot about how millennials in particular grew up with this concept of finding your dream job, finding meaningful work. And that can be great. And if you do find meaningful work and you do want to put a lot of time into it, that's perfectly okay. But at the same time, I like this pushback against that idea that you can also just find a job that just doesn't take up so much of your time and is relatively low stress. It reminds me of a throwback friend of ours, John Maynard Keynes, the economist who in 1930 predicted that with all the technology changes, we would be working 15-hour work weeks. And that never happened. But I think this is the time where John Maynard Keynes is about to make his revolution.
That's a really great reference, actually, Sammie. I love me some Keynesian economics. And I always think about that he was like, wow, technology is getting so advanced that we don't need to work 40 hours a week anymore. Meanwhile, fast forward to 2023, and we're still bragging about our 100-hour work days. We're still promoting and glorifying hustle culture. And it is interesting that we're finally almost seeing exactly what you're saying, this pushback from especially younger people like Gen Z who are like, yeah, if you want me to do this job and it only takes me 20 hours to do it, I'm only going to do it for 20 hours. I don't really feel attached to the identity of overworking or working hard, like you and Cal Newport said.
And another thing that Gabrielle talks about is how a lot of people maybe don't want to move into entrepreneurship or doing a bunch of online affiliate marketing and completely leaving their W-2 job. I completely agree with this part that she mentions, which is the W-2 job has a lot of benefits. You get health insurance, you get a 401k, you feel like you have some security. And I think there's a lot of people like me who just kind of want to do a W-2 job, but we just don't want it to take up all our time.
It's funny, Sammie, because I think you and Gabrielle, I don't want to say you have a similar path because she was in consulting, which I do think can be very stressful and encourage long hour days. it's not the same, I think, sometimes like a healthcare role. But at the same time, it is like two people who are moving from a job that was demanding a lot from them and moving into a role that's like, hey, maybe it's okay if I don't give my everything. And that's something that I also like with what she's talking about, because I agree with you. Like, there are a lot of benefits to the 9 to 5. And at the same time, it's important to recognize when your job is asking too much from you. There are a lot of roles that ask people to work overtime without getting paid for it. And it's not like a season of overtime. It's constantly. Maybe you have a toxic manager. Maybe you have a workload that's never going to fit into your day. Those type of things, I don't think it's bad to rebel against, especially in a world where there's a lot of layoffs, say, in tech right now, right? But the work still exists. So sometimes your coworkers might go missing and then you're expected to pick up the slack. Like if someone on my team left when I was in sales, we were still as a team responsible for their quota. And so that means that if somebody leaves, they're quitting, but you have to pick up the slack, which isn't really fair.
Listening to this whole lazy girl thing, I kind of decided that maybe an optimal mesh, in my opinion, would be something that involves both coast fire and the lazy girl mentality.
I was thinking something similar, which I have criticisms of the lazy girl job. And one of them is that...
Here we go.
And one of them is that it doesn't actually give you a solution to the problem. Her solution, or the solution in this trend, is work less. And she kind of vaguely alludes to this idea that you can find meaningful stuff in other things that you do. But she doesn't really, I think, put a blueprint to that. The focus is on the lazy girl job. And one thing I like about financial independence retire early movement, is it actually tells you what to do with your money. It's like, okay, don't just get the job that's, in this case, she's saying 60 to 80K is the optimal amount. What are you going to do with your money after that is my question. How do you actually save and build for a future so that 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, you still have something that's supporting yourself? Because quite frankly, like if safety is the goal here, like job safety, then, and this is a big criticism of the lazy girl jobs, is that they might be automated out by AI. Or for example, over 200,000 people in tech were laid off of their jobs in the past year. That's not job security. And if you had a lazy girl job, then you lost it, but you weren't actually doing anything to set yourself up for financial success, then you're out of luck and you're kind of just in the same situation you would have been had you been like burnt out and a high achiever.
I agree, Michelle. I think the financial literacy part of it is what's missing, because I think it's very reasonable to choose a job that pays well and doesn't require a ton of hours. Very reasonable, very practical. I support it. But at the same time, I think building wealth for your future self to provide additional security, especially when you have a job that seems like, if it's a lazy girl job and maybe it could be smushed into somebody else's job, it may be one of the first jobs to go if a recession or something like that happens. So preparing financially with an emergency fund, and by preparing for your future 59-and-a-half-year-old and above self with investing in retirement accounts while also doing your lazy girl job, that helps provide extra security that will allow you to do your lazy girl job with ease.
Yes, exactly, Sammie. And a part of that to me too, I do wish the lazy girl job trend, and honestly a lot of Gen Z trends in general, would address consumerism a little bit more. Because the thing is, when you open TikTok, it's all of these hauls. It's all of these, I bought these clothing. I'm wearing new things every day. And I really think the reason we keep working is because we're spending money on things that marketing is telling us to buy. And that used to be television commercials, but that's also TikTok now. I feel like the lazy girl job trend plus a lot of Gen Z's like excessive consumerism, it doesn't add up, because then you're going to work your lazy girl job for the rest of your life if you're not saving and budgeting as well.
100% agree, Michelle. You combine lazy girl job with minimalism or just keeping what you need and not living in excess above your means, then you have something that I think the masses can hear. Another beef I had with the lazy girl job, the title. I mean, I get it. There's a reason that they have that, and it's interesting. It's clear. It's direct.
It's that like Gen Z self-deprecating kind of humor. I think they call it in
Gen Zs always have these like hyperbolic terms. And it's kind of like this Gen Z humor where if you're not around a lot of Gen Zs, you probably don't understand it. It's not very clear and direct. It's like they're saying lazy girl job, but they're actually not lazy at all. The person who's
according
saying
to
this.
them. Mm-hmm.
And they're saying it kind of tongue in cheek to kind of like make you react to it and say something negative, but also they're also trying to signal that they're indifferent to what you're saying. It's a whole loop.
I don't understand it myself. It's a hard, when you're old, a millennial like myself, I can't do it, you know, like I don't get it, but I see what they're saying.
Yes. I sometimes think this highly emotive dramaticness that comes along with these terms and this whole concept, you know, then there's a lot of like almost like anti-work stuff that goes along with the lazy girl job that's kind of like really almost angry feeling. I think that can sometimes bring down the message for people. It has this strong anti-work undertone, which I think comes off a little bit hateful, maybe entitled.
I agree, Sammie. And actually, on one hand, I understand why having like a clickbaity title like that, like she's trending, it's super popular right now. Lazy girl job is definitely catching a lot more attention than have a meaningful job would. But part of my concern with it is that I really, really, really believe that you should be conscientious of how you're labeling yourself and what you're promoting. There's something I've been thinking a lot about around this idea of embracing mediocrity and how that's actually pretty dangerous for you. The reason I feel that way is, like I said, her lazy girl job titles, they were circling around my own job title when I was in sales. And there was a period of time when I was working in tech, you know, my golden handcuff season where I felt like I knew everything that I was doing and I was really comfortable in my job. And I was like, you know, if I don't get promoted, if I just sort of stay at this level, if I stay at this mediocre level, which is like good enough to get paid, but not bad enough to get fired, like I thought that was actually the perfect solution. And then I would go out and eat and get drunk and travel and do all of these quote unquote fun things in my free time. But what I didn't realize is that I was teaching myself that I was mediocre. I was spending 40 hours a week on something and aiming for the middle. And for me, one, I got bored. Like I got way too comfortable. And when I switched roles, I think part of the reasons I struggled in a harder, more difficult role was because I had told myself for so long that I'm mediocre. I can't work hard. I don't work hard. I have a lazy girl job. And so I just struggle with that terminology and like embracing mediocrity in that sense, because even though she kind of says the same things that we're saying, I don't like the labeling of it because I don't want to encourage people to think of themselves as lazy.
It's a dangerous manifestation, Michelle. Another thing is, I do think there is some degree of a lack of ownership. And I think about myself and my job, at my old job at least, there were people who got the job done in 8 hours. They were quicker, they had strong boundaries. You know, they weren't going to do certain things that they weren't supposed to do, or they would delegate aggressively. And there is an aspect of laying down boundaries, even with yourself. Like, how much time am I going to spend on a note? You know, I could spend 15 minutes or I could spend 3 minutes. And if I have 20 to do, then I need to spend 3 minutes, and I need to learn how to set boundaries with myself and not just be a perfectionist or OCD or so detail oriented that you just want to spend forever doing things. I think that the lazy girl job kind of aims to find a job that just doesn't have a lot of responsibilities, when in reality, we also have to learn how to say no to things that people put on our plate.
Yeah, instead of forcing yourself to stay at a level that is keeping you underemployed or isn't challenging you, instead of lazy girl, maybe women with boundaries at her job. Less catchy, but I think that's really what she's getting at, right? Like, yes, don't work no more than 9 to 5. Don't stay in a toxic work environment. Have and search for a boss that cares about you. Those things shouldn't be associated with being lazy.
You know what lazy girl job reminds me of?
Yes. No. What does it remind you of?
4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss.
Ooh, is the lazy girl job the 4-hour work week for women?
Or the 4-hour work week for the Gen Z.
Mm.
Because the 4-hour work week was also for women.
And the lazy girl job trend is also for men.
Yes.
And Tim Ferriss did get fired from like 5 of his jobs because he was quote unquote lazy. He had found a way to do them in, say, 20 hours instead of 40, and his companies weren't happy with that.
Yes, I was actually thinking about this mainly because when you look at this girl, Gabrielle Judge, and her TikTok, there is a lot of hateful commentary, even from big news media outlets. And maybe that's just more the culture these days to have like more controversial commentary. But I was thinking to myself, I'm like, did Tim Ferriss get this much hate for the 4-hour work week? Or maybe it's the way it's being presented. But I just was thinking they're very similar concepts, but definitely people hear a lazy girl job and they immediately have a reaction.
That's a good point, Sammie, because even in the 4-hour work week, like Tim talks about getting a virtual assistant, finding the best ways to do your work in the time bounds that you have instead of working your full 8-hour weeks. But it's a lot of the same ideas. How do you work less and enjoy your life? And so maybe it's just a relabeling put into a pithy TikTok.
I'm guessing it's been almost a decade since Tim Ferriss's book has come out, and pithy things, shorter content things have really been a huge change since that time. So I can see maybe just the zeitgeist being the reason this is so much more controversial today.
It's so funny, too, because I do feel like at least the woman who's the face of this right now, Gabriella Judge, she's similar to Tim Ferriss in that they both are preaching these lazier, quote-unquote, lifestyles. And yet she's, just like Tim was, is working really, really hard. She's a content creator. She puts out tons of TikToks. She's doing interviews. She's catching all these news clips. She has her own Lazy Girl program for like $40 that you can follow. And she's making money off of this. She even calls herself a recovering workaholic or a healing workaholic. She says she's like not even there yet. And so it's just funny to me. I think you should also look at the people who are writing this stuff. Like she's promoting lazy girl jobs. She's not really living it. Or she's saying, oh, you don't need the 9-to-5. She left her 9-to-5. And I think it's important to be cognizant of those things.
We got the lazy girl police over here.
Are you lazy for real? I think Tim Ferriss has said that.
I'll show you lazy.
Oh, girl, I'm a lazy girl, okay? I know what it looks like.
I was thinking about this, and I actually think this whole lazy girl concept is most beneficial for people who aren't lazy.
Yes. Well, that's the irony of all this stuff, isn't it?
It really is. And people who are not lazy, it's almost like that whole lazy girl concept forces a boundary for them that they have trouble establishing, which I can relate to. So I am all about this lazy girl job thing. Maybe you could use a new title, but I support it.
Yeah, I agree. New title all the way. I do have to say, I understand that it's supposed to be self-deprecating and like anti-hustle culture, but
once again, that Gen Z humor. Say less, as they would say.
Whoever says any of this stuff. But the thing is, I don't want to put this on one person. I think it's just more about the concept behind this trend, is it feels very unfeminist to me. Like it feels like a step backwards. I know what it's saying it's doing is empowering women. And I get that. I do. Like, I do think women deserve all the time off that they want. And they deserve jobs that have good boundaries. But the thing is, like, when you look at the jobs that she's saying, like customer success manager, office administrator, like, I feel like I'm in the 1950s where it's like women are administrative assistants and women are nurses and men are doctors and women are customer success and men are in sales. Like, women have you know what I'm saying? Like, it's this weird push and pull where it's like, I don't necessarily think women have to be these crazy career focused, climbing up the ladder, ambitious, like break the glass ceiling type of people. But I do feel like we're going a little bit backwards by saying like, oh, like specifically women, which is what she's targeting, should have these quote unquote easier jobs that also are stereotypically given to women because they're considered not as smart or not as aggressive or not as hardworking as men. So that's just like an underlining thing with all of this that really, really bothers me.
Yeah, Michelle, I think especially with men, taking up more roles in the home. Like they're taking care of kids more. They're definitely participating in housework more. And that's starting to become more common and prevalent. Something like the lazy folks job would have been a little bit more appropriate. It's more palatable.
Exactly. Get your husband a lazy boy job. Have him typing away at the computer, answering emails. Then he's going to check on the baby. And
you know what? I figured it out. It's because lazy boy couches probably got a little trademark on that.
They're like, whoa. Lazy boy comes back. We have lazy girl job recliners, just so you know.
Takeaways.
So the lazy girl job is another thing that's trending in the career space right now. But there are some meaningful takeaways to pull from this trend.
First of all, find balance in your work. Whether that's working less hours or working a job that's not so intense, your career does not have to be your life. Your career does not have to be the most passionate thing in your life. Your career can be just a job.
Exactly. It may be called a lazy girl job, but really it's for people who just maybe need to create a few more boundaries at work. Maybe you need to find a job that's a little bit less toxic. And I do think part of the goal here is also to feel less guilty. Like if your job isn't your world, or if you're going through seasons of your life where you have to work this job that maybe you feel a little underemployed, but it's paying your bills, that's okay. Like I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
And I think a build a wealthy spirit takeaway on the lazy girl job is do the lazy girl job, but have the end in mind. Think about your finances when you get these kind of wonderful opportunities like lazy girl jobs. Think about putting money away for your future self, and think about creating an emergency fund so that way, no matter what happens to you, you've created a security blanket for yourself.
I love that, Sammie. When I was working at sales and I was at a point in my first job where I felt really comfortable, I was also saving a lot of money. So not only was I bankrolling this lifestyle that was probably a little bit too much and a little bit too consumeristic, I was also saving so that later in my life, when I wanted to be a hardworking and ambitious girl, I was able to do that. I was able to take my savings from my lazy girl job days and be an actual lazy girl for a little bit, and then be a little bit more of an entrepreneur.
Exactly, Michelle.
I think a key too with that, Sammie, is the same thing that we say so often, which is it's not about the job at the end of the day. It's about your values. What is it that you specifically value? Are you ambitious and you love your job and you want to move up the corporate ladder? Go ahead, do that. Do you need health insurance right now? Do you want to focus on your family? Do you want to focus on different things in your personal life? If that's the case, the lazy girl job might be good for you. I think if you combine the lazy girl job with, like you said, some financial independence, personal finance tactics, as well as your personal values and understanding what season of life this is for you, then that's when these things can be really powerful. But it's not about enforcing to yourself that you're lazy, because you're not lazy. If you work this job or any job, if your job feels easy or hard, I don't know if I would ever think people just need to embrace the term lazy.
It should really be called the excellent time management folks job.
Okay, boomer.
And that's why it's not called that.
Community time.
Before we say goodbye, it's our community time. And Sammie, we had our lazy lady moment last night, if you will. We pulled out our chairs and we were stargazing. One of the beautiful benefits of living in the desert in the middle of nowhere, stars everywhere, especially during the meteor shower.
This week, the temperatures have come down a little bit to low 100s.
so
Next
cool.
week, they're going back up, so don't get too excited. But we were able to sit in our Amazon Zero Gravity chairs, once again, not a sponsor of this podcast, and enjoy the stars. And let me tell you, there were comets or shooting stars or whatever they are galore.
Yes. I don't know if I'm assuming a meteor shower is also a shooting star, because I don't think stars ever shoot, or they're always shooting.
That's true. Well, that's a good point.
The point is, there were so many shooting stars. And Sam, I was so present and happy to be in that moment with you. Like when we were seeing our own shooting stars, I was like, I really want to see one together. Like I just
Me too. I was like, I want us to see the same one, so we both see it together.
Yeah, and we did, and it was really beautiful.
It was huge. It was a really big one. It appeared to pass along the whole line of the Big Dipper, which was quite long.
It was crazy. We had a lot of existential conversations around the universe
and how far they are, and space and time.
It was a beautiful moment.
Mm-hmm.
And Sammie, speaking of shooting stars, I wanted to give a few shout outs to the stars in our community.
Please do.
First and foremost, after our episode last week with the 4 tendencies, 2 people reached out to me, Josh and Nahid. And it's so funny because they both told me that they really enjoyed the 4 tendency episodes and they took the 4 tendency quiz.
Oh my God, what was their tendency?
They were both upholders.
Okay, you know what? We should have known, because the type of person who would take the quiz after we recommended it on the episode would be an upholder.
It's true. It actually was cool because both of them told me that they had considered their own family members. Nahid had her sister listen to the episode and take the quiz. She's a questioner. So they sort of talked about what everybody in their family is. And Josh said the same thing. He was like, everybody in my family it's like 4 people in the family, and it's upholder, obliger, questioner, rebel. So I thought that was so fun.
Wow, that's interesting. And you know what? If you're a questioner listening to this and you're wondering, why should I take the quiz? You probably don't know you're a questioner yet. But if you're wondering why I should take the quiz, this is exactly why. When you know your family members' tendencies, then you just know how they operate. And that makes it easier for everybody to work together. So please, take the 4 tendencies quiz. Unless you're a rebel, then just forget about it.
Don't take the quiz.
Dumb. Don't even bother with it. It's a waste of your time.
Also, Sammie, after our lifestyle inflation episode, I received some really great comments on Twitter. My friend Toby said, hire me to find you a new city, which Toby, we did find a new city, but I appreciate it. And Mish, Melissa, and Rick all highlighted really great hidden advantages to moving to a big city.
Ooh.
Melissa pointed out that there's more free events, community spaces, like parks and stuff.
You know, this is a good point. In our small town, we only have, we have more than one park, but there's really just one park, and everybody's there. So multiple would be nice.
Yes, a little bit of anonymity would be nice too. Mish said she got rid of her car. She's going to walk around downtown. Rick mentioned that his mood is elevated just being around more people. And both of them had moved from smaller towns to bigger cities too. So I do agree with that. And I think even though we have our fears surrounding lifestyle inflation, we're actually so excited to move. Like, the costs are not the biggest deal. Like, we've made the decision to move, and we're very excited to just be around more people, especially people who don't know us. And also around people who do know us for like tens of years, just like have a little bit of anonymity too.
Also, our interview with Monica has been getting lots of love. Rick Lewis wrote up a Twitter thread with highlights from the episode.
Yes, I'll have to share the Twitter thread in our newsletter page, buildawealthyspirit.com. It was awesome because he also shared a framework for storytelling and pulled out examples from that episode. So I thought that was really cool. Thank you so much, Rick, for the shout out on Twitter. And we will have all of that information and all these people on our website. Let us know what you guys thought about this episode. Are you a lazy folk? Let us know. Did we miss anything behind this idea? Do you enjoy the term?
If you understand the humor and you want to explain it to us in a more succinct way, please do. And most importantly, be sure to join us next time as we put down the rulebook and we rethink the status quo.